Welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're joining us today. Look, we are tackling something that literally every researcher, analyst, and, well, just about any curious mind hits a wall with eventually: the completely overwhelming world of research data. If you've ever stared blankly at a mountain of surveys, massive interview transcripts, and endlessly scrolling spreadsheets and just felt paralyzed, yeah, you are absolutely in the right place. Let's get right into it. So here's the core dilemma of modern research, right? We're generating more information right now than at any point in human history. And the tricky part? It is not just neat, orderly little numbers. We are dealing with this chaotic, wild mix of cold, hard statistics right alongside messy, complex, deeply human stories. Figuring out how to balance those two extremes, how to actually make sense of a world drowning in data without completely losing your mind, well, that's the ultimate challenge. To get us there, we've got a really clear roadmap for today. We'll start with the modern data dilemma, meet our analytical heavyweights, dive into the magic of mixing methods, check out a real-world case study with the Wellbeing Project, and wrap up with the empirical proof in the numbers. All right, Section 1, the modern data dilemma. Basically, how to survive information overload. The sheer reality of what researchers face today is honestly staggering. We're looking at massive data sets spanning annual surveys, hours upon hours of video interviews, focus groups, even social media feeds from Twitter and Facebook. The days of sitting on your living room floor with a rainbow of highlighters and sticky notes, yeah, those are over. Manual analysis is practically obsolete at this scale. The volume and complexity of this data create a massive bottleneck. If you try to power through this by hand, you're severely limiting both the quality of your insights and the speed at which you can actually deliver them. Moving on to Section 2, let's meet the analytical heavyweights stepping in to save the day: SPSS and NVivo. Think of these two software platforms as your ultimate research life rafts. First up, SPSS. This is your high-powered engine for quantitative statistical analysis. It chews through large numerical datasets with ease, running regressions, ANOVAs, you name it. SPSS is all about the what and the how much. It's essentially the numerical skeleton of your research. Then you have NVivo. This is your qualitative powerhouse, built for theory building from text, audio, and multimedia. It tackles the why and the how. So if SPSS is the skeleton, NVivo is the narrative flesh and soul. They do very different things, but for sure you need both. Which brings us to Section 3, the mixed methods magic, blending numbers and narratives. Now, the crucial point is how we actually define this blend. According to expert researcher Pat Baisley, mixed methods research, or MMR, isn't just doing two things at once. It's about purposeful interdependence between data sources and the different methods you use for analysis. It is highly deliberate. It's not just having a spreadsheet open on one monitor and a Word doc on the other, right? It's about forcing those two types of data to actually talk to each other to uncover a much deeper understanding. So how does this integration happen in the real world? Well, it usually plays out in a few ways. Sometimes it's an incidental iterative exchange. Basically, as you design your project or gather data, a random idea from an interview might suddenly spark a brand new question for your quantitative survey. Other times, it's totally planned. You build a deliberate point of interface, bringing data sets together specifically to compare them. And here's the real game changer. Tools like NVivo allow you to transform qualitative codes directly into quantitative variables. You can then feed those right back into SPSS for statistical testing. It creates this continuous, incredibly powerful loop. Section 4, Inside the Wellbeing Project, where we put theory into practice. A great mixed methods project almost always starts with a concept map. Take the Wellbeing Project, for example, which assessed health benefits for the Older Women's Network of New South Wales. Before a single line of data was ever coded, researchers mapped out their theory of change. They took these abstract, floating ideas like cognitive health, social isolation, physical mobility, and visually drew direct connections to solid outcomes like a sense of well-being or reduced demand for healthcare. This visual structure becomes the vital starting framework before diving into the mountain of messy data they're about to collect. And once that framework is locked in, the floodgates open. The Wellbeing Project team wasn't just pulling one type of data. They fed a wild variety of real-world, chaotic information into NVivo. We are talking PDFs of existing literature, open-ended questionnaire responses, full audio from focus groups, video observations, and even social media scrapes. NVivo acts as the central hub, specifically engineered to ingest, organize, and make sense of this massive diversity of information. It's honestly fascinating to see this software doing the heavy lifting here. When you're working in the interface, the import options are incredibly diverse. You can easily pull in everything from Excel files and SurveyMonkey results to web pages and YouTube videos. And then as you navigate through, the system is actively sorting cases. These cases often represent individual people in the study, and you can attach specific demographic attributes to them. So say you have a participant named Acacia, you tag her role as a volunteer. That means later on, with just a couple of clicks, you can instantly compare the interview transcripts of all the volunteers against the non-volunteers.
Getting to those insights follows a surprisingly systematic workflow. Step 1, you just import your files and bibliographic data. Step 2 is coding. Now, this can be interactive, where you're manually highlighting text and assigning it to categories, or it can be auto-coding, where the software steps in to identify structures, like separating different speakers in an interview transcript, and codes them for you. Step 3, you identify your themes and connect your evidence using links and memos. Just like that, completely overwhelming raw data is broken down into manageable, actionable insights.
Finally, Section 5, Proof in the Numbers, Validating the Tools. When researchers across various disciplines were surveyed about how these tools actually impact their work, the validation was huge. An overwhelming 85% of respondents said that SPSS was absolutely necessary for their statistical analysis. When you are dealing with complex, heavy-duty tasks like running regression models, SPSS isn't just some nice-to-have luxury. It is considered operationally indispensable by the research community for getting the what and the how much exactly right. And get this. The consensus for the qualitative side is even higher. A staggering 90% of researchers stated that NVivo is indispensable for managing their qualitative data and doing thematic analysis. Think about it. When you're wrestling with the sheer nuance of human language, video reactions, and complex social narratives, having a tool to visually and systematically code those themes is literally a non-negotiable for modern researchers. The whole thing is summed up perfectly in a study by Vasudev and Kadam. They noted that both tools helped in streamlining the process, such that more time could be used on interpretation and decision-making, with less going into managing the data. That right there is the ultimate benefit. It's about massive time savings and a huge boost in analytical rigor. The software handles the sorting, the filing, and the calculating, and that frees you up to do the one thing only human beings can do: actually interpret the meaning and make vital decisions.
But okay, we do have to mention the caveat here, because it's crucial. Software does not replace human intelligence. As ridiculously powerful as SPSS and NVivo are, at the end of the day, they're just tools. They're only as good as the analyst using them. Successfully synthesizing quantitative and qualitative data, actually weaving those numbers and narratives into a single cohesive story, is still a massive intellectual challenge. It requires serious training, critical thinking, and a deep understanding of your subject matter. The software can build the house, but you still have to be the architect.
Which leaves us with this final thought. You now know that to truly understand the world, you need both the numerical skeleton and the narrative soul. You've seen exactly how tools like SPSS and NVivo empower you to tame that data flood and find the real magic in mixed methods. So the question is, how will you integrate the what and the why to revolutionize the data decisions in your next project? Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and as always, keep exploring.